Dad, Dad, stay with me, please, God. Don't take him now. Marcus Williams's scream tore through the frozen Chicago night as his father slumped forward in the passenger seat, clutching his chest. The old man's face had gone gray, his breath coming in terrible rattling gasps. Marcus didn't think he just drove his motorcycle boots slamming the accelerator, the SUV fishtailing through ice-slicked streets at speeds that would have gotten him arrested any other night. But tonight arrest was the least of his problems. Before we dive into what happened next, if you're watching this, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is going to take you places you won't believe, and I need you to stick with me until the very end. Comment below with your city so I can see how far this incredible, true story has reached. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single minute of this. 10 minutes earlier, Marcus had been laughing. His father, Robert Williams, had been telling stories at the dinner table. The kind of stories only a man who'd lived 73 hard years could tell. Stories about raising 4 sons alone after their mother died. Stories about working double shifts at the steel mill so his boys could have Christmas presents. Stories about the day Marcus came home at 17 with a leather Hell's Angels vest and how Robert hadn't spoken to him for a week, then finally said, "If you're going to be part of something, be the best damn part of it." Marcus had raised his beer. "To you, old man, the toughest bastard I know." Then his father's hand had frozen mid-reach for his glass. His face twisted. The beer crashed to the floor. "Marcus, I can't. My chest." Now Marcus was doing 90 on Lakeshore Drive, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping his father's wrist, feeling for a pulse that was getting weaker by the second. His phone was on speaker, the 911 operator's voice tinny and distant. "Sir, is he still conscious?" "Barely. How much further to Northwestern Memorial?" 3 minutes. Keep him talking if you can." "Dad," Marcus shook his father's shoulder. "Dad, you hear me? We're almost there. You're not dying tonight. You hear me? You're not dying." Robert's eyes fluttered open, cloudy with pain. His lips moved, barely forming words. "Marcus, tell your brothers. I love." "No, you're telling them yourself, Dad." Marcus slammed the horn, blasting through a red light. A taxi swerved its driver, screaming curses that disappeared into the night. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except the hospital looming ahead, its emergency entrance glowing like salvation. He screeched into the parking lot at 10:52 p.m., the SUV sliding sideways before jerking to a stop. Marcus threw open his door, already screaming for help. "I need help. My father's having a heart attack. Help!" But the emergency entrance was 40 yards away, and his father was dead weight, 200 pounds of dying man. Marcus tried to lift him, felt his own muscles straining, felt panic rising like bile in his throat. "Someone help me!" A security guard started jogging over, but too slow. Everything was too slow. Marcus got his arms under his father's shoulders, started dragging him toward the entrance. Robert's feet scraped against the pavement. His breathing had become a horrible wheeze. "Hold on, Dad, hold on, please." Then Marcus saw her. At first she was just a shape huddled near a dumpster at the edge of the parking lot, a bundle of rags and misery that he would have ignored any other night. Chicago had thousands of homeless people, especially in winter. They were part of the landscape, invisible until they weren't. But this one moved. She stood up, and even in his panic, Marcus registered details: young, maybe late 20s, wearing a coat so tattered it barely deserved the name. Her hair was matted, her face smudged with dirt. But her eyes were alert, focused, locked on something behind him. Marcus followed her gaze. 40 feet away, closer to the hospital entrance, a man in a business suit had collapsed face first onto the pavement. His briefcase had spilled, open papers scattering in the wind. A woman in scrubs, a nurse coming off shift, was running toward him, but she was still 20 feet away. The homeless girl didn't hesitate. She ran. Marcus watched his father's weight dragging him down, and as this wraith of a woman sprinted across the parking lot with a speed that seemed impossible. Her coat flew behind her. Her boots held together with duct tape slapped against the pavement. She reached the collapsed man before the nurse did, dropping to her knees beside him with a precision that made Marcus's skin prickle. Her hands went to the man's neck, checking for a pulse. 2 seconds, maybe 3. Then she rolled him onto his back, tilted his head, and started compressions. "Call code blue," she shouted at the approaching nurse. "No pulse, not breathing. Get a crash cart now." The nurse fumbled for her phone, but the homeless girl had already started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her hands locked together, positioned perfectly over the man's sternum. She compressed hard, her whole body weight driving down. Professional, trained. Marcus felt his world tilt. The security guard finally reached him. Sir, let me help. Get my father inside. Marcus shoved Robert toward the guard. Now. The guard grabbed Robert and started hauling him toward the entrance, calling for help. Marcus should have followed. Every instinct screamed at him to follow, but he couldn't move. He stood there in the parking lot watching this homeless girl perform CPR with a textbook precision that would have impressed any paramedic he'd ever known. 30 compressions, she muttered, then bent down, sealed her blue-tinged lips over the man's mouth, and gave 2 rescue breaths. Then back to compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her fingers were wrong. That's what Marcus noticed next. They were swollen, the tips blackened with frostbite. Every compression had to hurt, had to send pain shooting through those damaged hands. But she didn't stop, didn't even slow down. The nurse returned with 2 others and a crash cart. We've got it from here. He's been down for approximately 90 seconds, Vanyam, the homeless girl said, not breaking rhythm. Suspected cardiac arrest, witness collapse. Continue compressions while you prep the AED. One of the nurses blinked. Who are you, Bayan? Nobody. The girl's voice cracked. Just let me finish this cycle. She counted to 30, delivered 2 more breaths, then moved aside as the medical team swarmed the man. They ripped open his shirt, placed the AED pads. The automated voice analyzing rhythm. Do not touch the patient. The homeless girl stumbled backward, her whole body shaking. Marcus saw her lips clearly now, not just blue, but cracked and bleeding from the cold. She wrapped her arms around herself, her breath coming in harsh gasps. Clear, one of the nurses shouted. The AED delivered its shock. The man's body jerked. We have a pulse. Get him inside. Let's move. They loaded the man onto a gurney, wheeled him toward the emergency entrance at a run. The homeless girl stood there watching them go, her shoulders heaving. Then she turned to leave. Wait, Marcus found his voice. Wait, hold on. She glanced at him, and up close he could see she was younger than he'd thought. Mid-20s maybe. Pretty once underneath the grime and exhaustion. Her eyes were a startling green, sharp with intelligence that homelessness hadn't dulled. Your father? She asked, her voice hoarse. They're taking care of him. Marcus stepped closer. What you just did, where did you learn that? It doesn't matter. She started walking away, limping slightly. The hell it doesn't. You saved that man's life. She stopped, but didn't turn around. It's what I'm trained for. The words hung in the frozen air between them. Trained for, not what I learned on the street or what I saw on TV. Trained. Marcus moved around to face her. Who are you? Nobody. Her eyes dropped. I'm nobody. Bullshit. Nobody performs CPR like that. I've seen paramedics with 10 years experience who aren't that smooth. So I'm asking again, who are you? For a moment, he thought she'd run, her whole body tense like a scared animal. But then something in her face crumbled just a little. I used to be somebody, she whispered. That's all that matters. She tried to step around him, but her legs buckled. Marcus caught her before she hit the ground, felt how light she was, how her whole body was shaking with cold and exhaustion. When's the last time you ate? He asked. I don't know. Yesterday, maybe the day before. Jesus. Marcus looked toward the hospital entrance. He needed to check on his father, needed to know if the old man was going to make it. But this girl had just saved a stranger's life with frostbitten hardened and an empty stomach, and now she was trying to disappear back into the night like it was nothing. Come on, he said, guiding her toward the entrance. You're coming inside. I can't. They don't let people like me. They'll let you in if you're with me. Come on. She resisted, but she was too weak to really fight. Marcus half carried her through the automatic doors into the blast of heat that made her gasp. The waiting room was crowded. It always was on Friday nights, but Marcus pushed through to the reception desk. My father, Robert Williams, they just brought him in. Heart attack. The receptionist typed on her computer. He's in Trauma Bay 3. The doctors are with him now. You can't bring her in here. Marcus followed her gaze to the homeless girl leaning against him. She just saved a man's life in your parking lot. She's staying with me. Sir, our policy. Your policy can go to hell. She saved someone while your staff was still running to help. Now where's my father? The receptionist's mouth tightened, but she pointed down a hallway. Through those doors, turn left. But she needs to stay in the waiting area. Marcus guided the girl to a chair. Sit, don't move. I'll be right back. You don't have to. Sit. He left her there, practically ran down the hallway. Trauma Bay 3 was a chaos of activity. Doctors, nurses, machines beeping and humming. His father was on a table shirt, cutaway wires running everywhere. Mr. Williams. A doctor turned to face him, young Indian, exhausted looking. I'm Dr. Patel. Your father's had a significant myocardial infarction, a heart attack. We're stabilizing him now, but he needs emergency catheterization. We'll be taking him up to the cath lab in about 5 minutes. Is he going to make it? Dr. Patel hesitated just long enough for Marcus's stomach to drop. He's critical, but we got to him quickly. That's in his favor. The next few hours will tell us more. Marcus pushed past the doctor to his father's side. Robert's eyes were closed, his face slack with sedation. An oxygen mask covered his nose and mouth. He looked old suddenly, not the tough steel worker who'd raised 4 boys, but an old man who might not see tomorrow. I'm here, Dad, Marcus said, gripping his father's hand. I'm right here. Robert's fingers twitched. Maybe he heard, maybe he didn't. We need to take him now, Dr. Patel said gently. Marcus stepped back, watched them wheel his father away. The hallway swallowed them, leaving him standing there with his heart in his throat. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother Jake. Where are you? You didn't show at the clubhouse. Marcus had forgotten. Friday night. They always met at the Hells Angels clubhouse on Fridays. He typed back, hospital. Dad had a heart attack. The response was immediate, on our way. Marcus walked back to the waiting room in a daze. The homeless girl was still there, huddled in the chair, staring at her hands. Someone had given her a blanket, probably a sympathetic nurse, and she'd wrapped it around herself like armor. He sat down next to her. Thank you. She looked at him confused. For what? For reminding me that there are still people who give a damn. You didn't have to help that man. You could have just walked away. No, she said softly. I couldn't. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus noticed something on the floor near her feet, a plastic bag torn open, its contents partially spilled out. It must have fallen from her coat when he'd helped her inside. Before he could say anything, the girl saw it too. Her face went white. No, no, no. She scrambled to gather the items, but Marcus was faster. His hand closed around a laminated card. He looked at it. Registered nurse, Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, Sarah Monroe. License number NUR.0415074142. Issued March 2019. Expiration March 2021. Expired. But the photo showed a different person, same green eyes, but healthy, smiling. Her hair clean and pulled back. Professional. Marcus looked from the card to the girl. Sarah Monroe. She closed her eyes. Please, just give it back. But there was more in the bag. Papers folded and refolded so many times they were falling apart. Marcus pulled one out, unfolded it. It was a bill, a medical bill. Patient Sarah Monroe. Services rendered emergency appendectomy, 3-day hospital stay. Total charges, $47,832. Marcus's eyes widened. He pulled out another paper. Collection notice. Final warning. Amount owed $731,422.08. He read it again. $731,000. What the hell is this? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. My life, or what's left of it. You owe $750,000 in medical debt. Not just medical, student loans too. Nursing school wasn't cheap. She laughed a broken sound. I worked so hard. Got through school, passed my boards, got my license. I was going to help people, you know. That's all I ever wanted, to help people. So what happened? She was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. Then, I got sick, appendicitis. I was between jobs, didn't have insurance. Thought I could wait it out, but it ruptured. Went septic. I was in the ICU for a week, had 2 surgeries, nearly died. She pulled the blanket tighter. When I woke up, I had bills for almost $50,000. on top of my student loans, which were already over 200,000. Marcus did the math. That's only 250,000. Where did the other 500,000 come from? Interest, penalties, collection fees. Her voice was flat dead. I tried to pay. God, I tried. But I was a new nurse making maybe 50,000 a year. Every month, more interest piled on. Then I missed a payment on my license renewal fee, $850. I was short, $850, and they suspended my license. They suspended your license over $800. It's the law. You don't pay your fees, you can't practice. And if you can't practice, you can't earn money to pay your fees. It's a perfect trap. She looked at her frostbitten hands. I tried to fight it, tried to get on a payment plan, but by then the collection agencies had bought my debt. They didn't want payment plans. They wanted everything all at once, plus their fees. Marcus stared at the collection notice. The letterhead read Apex Recovery Solutions. I've heard of these bastards, he said slowly. They buy up debt for pennies on the dollar, then bleed people drinking. They're very good at it. Sarah's voice was bitter. They garnished my wages from the jobs I could get without my licensed waitressing retail. Took my car, emptied my bank account. I had nothing left, lost my apartment, started living in my car, then lost that too. She gestured at herself. This is what's left. How long have you been on the streets? 8 months, 243 days. She said it like she'd been counting. I keep my license in that bag because it's the only proof I have that I used to be somebody, that I used to matter. Marcus felt something cold and furious settling in his chest. You saved a man's life tonight, with frostbitten hands and hypothermia. You matter. The law doesn't think so. Fuck the law. She smiled sad and tired. You sound like someone who's had experience with that sentiment. I'm Hell's Angel's sweetheart. The law and I have never been close friends. He looked at the papers again, his mind racing. This collection agency, Apex Recovery Solutions, they're the ones holding all your debt. Most of it, they bought it from the hospital and the loan servicers. Why? Marcus didn't answer. He was thinking about his brothers, about the network they had, about the things they could do when they decided someone needed help, or when someone needed to be taught a lesson. The automatic doors slid open and 3 large men in leather vests walked in. Marcus's brothers, Jake, Tommy, and Rafe. They spotted him immediately cross the waiting room in long strides. How's the old man? Jake asked. He was the oldest, 45, with a scar across his jaw from a bar fight 10 years back. Critical. They're doing a catheterization now. Tommy, the middle brother, glanced at Sarah. Who's this? This is Sarah. Marcus stood up. She saved a man's life in the parking lot tonight. Used to be a nurse before the system chewed her up and spit her out. Sarah shrank back in her chair, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. 3 massive bikers in Hell's Angels colors weren't exactly soothing company. Rafe, the youngest at 32, crouched down in front of her. You're shaking. When's the last time you had a hot meal? I don't remember. Tommy, get her something from the cafeteria. Something real, not just coffee. I'm okay, Sarah protested weakly. You're not okay, Marcus said. You're hypothermic and starving, and you just performed CPR on a stranger in 20-degree weather. You're about as far from okay as it gets. Tommy headed toward the cafeteria without argument. That was the thing about the Hell's Angels that outsiders never understood. Yeah, they were rough. They broke laws. They scared the hell out of normal people. But they took care of their own. And Marcus had just decided that Sarah was their own. What's the play here? Jake asked, his voice low. Marcus handed him the collection notice. Jake read it, his expression darkening. He passed it to Rafe. Jesus Christ, Rafe muttered. 700 grand. For the crime of getting sick, Marcus said. And there's more. They suspended her nursing license over an $850 fee she couldn't pay. Jake's jaw clenched. Who's the collection agency? Apex Recovery Solutions. Never heard of them. We're going to learn everything about them, Marcus said. Starting tonight. Sarah was looking between them, her green eyes wide. What are you talking about? We're talking about fixing this, Marcus said. You can't fix this. It's too big, too complicated. The system, fuck the system, Jake said flatly. We don't play by their rules anyway. But listen to me. Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with her. You saved a stranger's life tonight. You didn't have to. You could have stayed by that dumpster, kept yourself safe and warm. But you ran towards someone who needed help, even though you were barely surviving yourself. That's not nothing. That's everything. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. I just did what I was trained to do. Exactly. You're a nurse, Sarah. That's who you are, license or no license. And nurses help people. Well, guess what? We help people too. Different people, different methods, but the principle's the same. He tapped the collection notice. These bastards at Apex think they can destroy lives without consequences. They're about to learn different. You don't understand. They're a corporation. They have lawyers, resources. And we have brothers in every city in America, Rafe said. We have connections these corporate assholes never dreamed of. We know people who know people. This isn't a fight you can win with violence, Sarah said desperately. Who said anything about violence? Marcus smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. Violence is easy. What we're talking about is justice. And justice requires information, leverage, and patience. Tommy returned with a tray of food soup, a sandwich, coffee, orange juice. The smell made Sarah's stomach growl audibly. She reached for the soup with trembling hands, spilled a little. Take your time, Tommy said gently. It's not going anywhere. She ate slowly at first, then faster like she couldn't help herself. The brothers watched in silence, each of them thinking the same thing. How does the richest country in the world let this happen? When Sarah had finished half the soup, she looked up at Marcus. Why are you doing this? Because my father raised me to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves, Marcus said. Because you saved a man's life tonight when you had every reason to just walk away. Because this, he gestured at the collection notice. This is bullshit, and I don't tolerate bullshit. Your father. Sarah's eyes widened. God, I forgot. Is he? Still in surgery, but he's tough. He'll make it. Marcus had to believe that. And when he wakes up, I'm going to tell him about the woman who saved a stranger's life right before I brought him in. You know what he'll say? Sarah shook her head. He'll say, that woman's got character. Help her. Marcus stood up. So that's what we're going to do. Jake was already on his phone texting rapidly. I'm reaching out to Cisco in legal. He'll know how to dig into this Apex company. And I'll call Rachel, Rafe added. Rachel was his girlfriend, a forensic accountant. If there's anything shady in their financials, she'll find it. Marcus pulled out his own phone, scrolled through contacts. He found the name he wanted, Danny Chen, a journalist for the Chicago Tribune, who owed the Hells Angels a favor from a few years back. Danny specialized in exposing corporate fraud. He typed, need to talk, got a story that'll blow your mind. Predatory debt collection. Healthcare worker, exploitation, the works. The response came within seconds. I'm listening. Marcus looked at Sarah. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. I don't have much choice, do I? You always have a choice, but I'm asking you to choose us, choose to fight back. I'm so tired of fighting. Then let us fight for you. Marcus's voice softened. Just for tonight, let someone else carry the weight. You've been strong for too long, Sarah. Let us be strong for you. Something broke in her then. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place of exhaustion and pain and relief all mixed together. Marcus sat down next to her, put an arm around her shoulders, let her cry. Tommy looked away, his jaw tight. Rafe stared at the floor. Jake kept texting, but his free hand was clenched into a fist. 10 minutes later, Dr. Patel emerged from the surgical wing. Marcus looked up, his heart in his throat. Your father's stable, the doctor said. We successfully cleared the blockage. He's in recovery now. Barring complications, he should make a full recovery. Marcus felt his knees go weak. Can I see him? In about an hour, we're monitoring him closely. After Dr. Patel left, Marcus turned back to his brothers. Okay, Dad's going to make it. Now we focus on this. He picked up the collection notice. Jake, what did Cisco say? He's pulling Apex's corporate filings now. Should have something in an hour. Rafe, Rachel's on it. She said debt collection agencies are notorious for shady accounting. If they're doing anything illegal, she'll find it. Marcus nodded, then looked at Sarah. She'd stopped crying, but her eyes were red and swollen. I need you to tell me everything about your interactions with Apex. Every phone call, every letter, every threat. Can you do that? I don't know if I remember it all. Whatever you remember is enough. Start from the beginning. Sarah took a shaky breath. The first call came about 6 months after I lost my license. A man named Derek something. He said Apex had purchased my debt and I needed to pay immediately or face legal consequences. What kind of consequences? Wage garnishment, asset seizure lawsuits. He said if I didn't pay within 30 days, they'd add collection fees that would double what I owed. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Did they tell you that you had rights, that you could request debt validation, dispute the charges? No, they just kept calling every day, sometimes 3 or 4 times. Different people all saying the same thing, pay now or face consequences. I tried to explain that I couldn't pay, that I'd lost my job because of the license suspension, but they didn't care. One woman told me I should sell my organs if I had to. She what? Tommy's voice was dangerous. She said, you're a nurse, you know how much a kidney goes for. Maybe that's your solution. Sarah's laugh was hollow. I reported the call, but nothing happened. They just kept calling from different numbers. Marcus was typing notes on his phone. What else? They garnished the wages from my waitressing job, took 70% of every paycheck. My landlord evicted me because I couldn't pay rent. They took my car, cleaned out my bank account. I had $200 to my name when I became homeless. And you've been on the streets ever since. Yes, I tried shelters, but they fill up fast. Tried to get help from social services, but without an address or ID that wasn't expired, I couldn't qualify for most programs. So I just survived, day by day. Jake's phone buzzed. He looked at it, his expression darkening. Cisco just sent the initial findings. Apex Recovery Solutions is a subsidiary of Meridian Capital Group, which is owned by, get this, Senator Richard Hargrove's investment fund. The Senator Hargrove, Rafe asked, the one who's always talking about fiscal responsibility and personal accountability. The same, and it gets better. Meridian Capital specializes in buying distressed debt from healthcare providers and educational institutions. They target young professionals with high student loans and medical debt. Then they use aggressive collection tactics to maximize recovery, adding fees and interest that often triple the original debt. Marcus felt cold rage settling deeper. So they're making millions off people like Sarah, all while their owner preaches about responsibility in Congress. It's legal technically, Jake said. Predatory as hell, but legal. Then we make it illegal, Marcus said. Or at least expensive enough that they think twice. Sarah was shaking her head. You can't fight a senator. You can't fight this kind of money and power. Watch us, Marcus said. His phone rang. Danny Chen, Marcus answered. Talk to me. I did some preliminary digging on Apex Recovery Solutions. Danny said, his voice tight with excitement. Marcus, this is big. We're talking systematic exploitation of healthcare workers, particularly nurses and young doctors. They've been buying up medical debt for years, then targeting professionals whose licenses depend on maintaining good credit. Can you prove it? With the right documents, absolutely. But I need someone willing to go on record. Someone with first-hand experience. Marcus looked at Sarah. She was watching him with those green eyes, terrified and hopeful at the same time. I might have someone, Marcus said, but she's been through hell. I need guarantees that you'll protect her identity until she's ready. You have my word. This is the kind of story that can change laws, Marcus. But I need details, documents, everything. You'll get it. Give me 24 hours. Marcus hung up, turned to Sarah. There's a reporter who wants to tell your story. He thinks it could expose what Apex is doing, maybe even change legislation. But it's your choice. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, if I do this, will it help other people, people like me? It could help thousands of people. Then I'll do it. Her voice was stronger now. I'll do whatever it takes. Marcus smiled. That's my girl. Over the next hour, as they waited for Robert to come out of recovery, the pieces started falling into place. Cisco found evidence that Apex had been sued multiple times for violating the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, but the cases had been settled quietly, sealed from public record. Rachel discovered irregularities in their accounting fees that appeared from nowhere, interest calculated at rates that exceeded legal limits. And Danny Chen started building his story brick by brick. When they finally let Marcus see his father, Robert was groggy but conscious. He gripped Marcus's hand with surprising strength. You scared the hell out of me, old man, Marcus said, his voice rough. Takes More than a heart attack. To kill me, Robert rasped. What happened? After. You're not going to believe this. Marcus told him everything about Sarah, about the CPR in the parking lot, about the debt and the suspended license, and the Hells Angels taking up her cause. When he finished, Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. That woman got character. Help her. Marcus laughed, felt tears stinging his eyes. That's exactly what I said you'd say. Because you know, you're old man. Robert's grip tightened. Do it right, son. Make them pay for what they did to her. We will, Dad, I promise. When Marcus returned to the waiting room, Sarah had fallen asleep in the chair, the blanket wrapped around her. She looked young and vulnerable, nothing like the fierce woman who'd sprinted across a parking lot to save a stranger's life. Tommy had gotten her another blanket. Rafe had moved a chair next to her as sitting guard. Jake was still on his phone coordinating planning. What's the next move? Tommy asked quietly. Marcus looked at Sarah, thought about everything she'd lost, everything that had been taken from her. Then he thought about all the others, like her nurses, doctors, young professionals crushed under debt. They'd never escape, all while companies like Apex grew fat off their suffering. We go to war, Marcus said simply. But smart, we use their weapons against them. Publicity, legal pressure, political exposure. We make Apex radioactive. Make it so expensive to target people like Sarah that they think twice before doing it again. And if they fight back, Marcus smiled cold and hard, then we remind them who they're fighting. We're Hell's Angels. We don't lose. Sarah stirred, opened her eyes. She looked confused for a moment, then remembered where she was. She sat up slowly, wincing. How long was I asleep? About an hour, Marcus said. And you're going to sleep more. We're taking you somewhere safe. I can't. Yes, you can. Jake's girlfriend has a spare room. You're staying there tonight. Tomorrow we start fighting back. I don't understand why you're doing this. Marcus crouched down in front of her. Because tonight when you saw someone who needed help, you didn't think about your own problems. You just helped. That's rare, Sarah. That's worth protecting. And because what happened to you is wrong, and I don't tolerate wrong. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank us yet. Thank us when this is over and you've got your license back and those bastards at Apex are exposed for what they are. He stood up, helped her to her feet. She swayed, slightly exhausted beyond measure. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you somewhere warm. As they walked out of the hospital, between Marcus and his brothers, she looked up at the night sky. The snow had stopped. Stars were visible between the clouds, cold and distant. I used to look at the stars when I was a little girl, she said softly. Used to think they were angels watching over us. Maybe they are, Marcus said. Or maybe, she said, looking at the men surrounding her, maybe angels wear leather and ride motorcycles. Marcus laughed. Now you're getting it. They walked through the parking lot, past the spot where Sarah had saved a stranger's life just hours earlier. The night was bitter cold, but Sarah didn't shiver anymore. For the first time in 243 days, she wasn't alone. And in the Hells Angels clubhouse across town, phones were already ringing, connections being made, favors being called in. Because when the Angels decided to fight for someone, they brought everything they had. Apex Recovery Solutions had no idea what was coming for them, but they were about to find out. Jake's girlfriend lived in a brownstone in Lincoln Park, the kind of neighborhood where Sarah once would have felt comfortable, but now felt like alien territory. She sat in the back of Jake's truck, wedged between Tommy and Rafe, watching the streets pass by through windows she'd once walked freely. You okay back there? Jake called from the driver's seat. Sarah nodded, then realized he couldn't see her. Yeah, just strange being in a car again. When's the last time? Rafe asked. 8 months. 244 days now. She caught herself. Sorry, I count everything now. Days, meals, hours of sleep. When you have nothing, counting is all you have left. Tommy shifted beside her. You won't have to count anymore. You don't know that. Yeah, I do, because Marcus doesn't start fights he can't finish, and he just declared war on Apex. The truck pulled up in front of a neat brownstone with flower boxes in the windows. Dead flowers now killed by winter, but Sarah could imagine them in spring. She used to have flower boxes, used to have a lot of things. Jake's girlfriend met them at the door. Her name was Maria, and she was small and fierce with dark eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at Sarah and her expression softened. Jesus, Jake, you didn't tell me she was this bad off. I'm fine, Sarah said automatically. Honey, you're hypothermic, malnourished, and about 5 seconds from collapsing. You're not fine. Maria stepped aside. Come in. Let's get you warmed up properly. Inside, the brownstone was warm and smelled like cinnamon. Sarah's knees almost buckled at the simple comfort of it. How long since she'd been somewhere that felt like home? Bathroom's upstairs, first door on the right, Maria said. There's clean towels, shampoo, soap, everything you need. Take as long as you want. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. Jake told me what you did tonight, saving that man. Anyone with that kind of courage deserves a hot shower and a safe place to sleep. Maria's voice dropped. And anyone who's been through what you've been through deserves a hell of a lot more than that. Sarah felt tears threatening again. She'd cried more in the last 3 hours than in the previous 8 months. On the streets, crying was dangerous. It showed weakness, invited predators. But here in this warm house with these strange, fierce people, the walls she'd built were crumbling. Go on, Maria urged gently. I'll make tea. The bathroom was a revelation. Clean white tiles, a shower with actual water pressure towels that were soft instead of the rough charity bin kind Sarah had grown used to. She undressed slowly, catching sight of herself in the mirror. She looked like a stranger. Her ribs showed through her skin. Her hip bones jutted out sharply. Her hair was matted despite her attempts to keep it clean in gas station sinks. The frostbite on her fingers was worse than she'd thought. 2 fingertips on her right hand had gone black. She might lose them. The thought came clinically detached. Nurses learned to compartmentalize, and Sarah had gotten very good at it. Lose 2 fingertips or lose your life, easy choice. The shower was almost painful at first, the hot water stinging her frozen skin. But then it became glorious, washing away months of street grime, of shame, of exhaustion. She used the shampoo 3 times before her hair felt clean. Stood under the spray until her skin turned pink. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than any bed she'd slept on, in months she found clean clothes laid out on the bathroom counter. Sweatpants, a thermal shirt, thick socks. They were too big, but they were clean and warm. Downstairs, the brothers had multiplied. The living room was full of leather and denim, at least 8 Hell's Angels in various states of conversation. Sarah froze in the doorway. Marcus spotted her first. Hey, come sit down, everyone. This is Sarah. A chorus of greetings, none of them threatening. These men who the world feared were looking at her with something like respect. We've been making calls, Marcus said, guiding her to the couch. Maria appeared with tea and what looked like homemade soup. Cisco's got some interesting information about Apex's business model. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses looked up from a laptop. That's me, Cisco. I handle legal issues for the club. He said it matter-of-factly, like being a lawyer for an outlaw motorcycle club was perfectly normal. Sarah, I need to ask you some questions about your interactions with Apex. Specifically, do you have any of the letters or documents they sent you? Some. In my bag. Sarah had brought the plastic bag with her, clutching it like a lifeline. She pulled out a stack of folded papers, handed them over. Cisco went through them quickly, his expression darkening with each page. This is good. Very good, actually. Or very bad, depending on your perspective. They violated the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act at least 7 times in these letters alone. What does that mean? Sarah asked. It means they broke federal law repeatedly. Cisco pulled out one letter, pointed to a paragraph. See this? They threatened legal action they had no intention of taking. That's illegal. And here they contacted you at work after you told them not to. Also illegal. And this, they disclosed your debt to a third party without your permission. But nothing happened when I reported them, Sarah said. I filed complaints and nothing changed. Because the penalties are small and companies like Apex just treat them as the cost of doing business. Cisco's smile was sharp. But what they don't count on is someone digging deeper. Finding patterns. Building a case that's too big to settle quietly. Jake was on his phone again. Rachel just sent over the preliminary financial analysis. Apex has been doing this to hundreds of healthcare workers, maybe thousands. How is that possible? Tommy demanded. Because they're smart about it, Cisco said. They target specific professions, nurses, doctors, physician, assistants, people who need licenses to work. Then they buy up their medical debt and student loans consolidated and use the threat of license suspension to force payment. Sarah's voice was hollow. But how can they suspend someone's license? They're not the state board. No, but they can report debt to the licensing board, which can then suspend licenses for unpaid fees or poor credit. It's a loophole, and Apex has been exploiting it ruthlessly. Cisco looked at her. Sarah, how many other nurses do you know who lost their licenses this way? I don't know. After I lost mine, I kind of disappeared, lost touch with everyone. Think, before you lost your license, did you hear about others having similar problems? Sarah closed her eyes, thinking back. There was a girl in my nursing school class, Amanda Chen. She posted on Facebook about losing her license over unpaid student loans. And another woman I worked with at Northwestern, Jessica, something she mentioned her wages being garnished by a collection agency. Her eyes snapped open. Oh my God, it wasn't just me. It's never just one person with companies like this, Cisco said grimly. They run a system, industrialized exploitation. Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his expression changed. Danny Chen just sent me something. He found a sealed lawsuit from 2019, a class action against Apex filed by 73 nurses in Illinois alone. The case was settled for an undisclosed amount, and everyone had to sign NDAs. 73 nurses. Sarah's voice cracked. In one state, and that's just the ones who joined the lawsuit. How many didn't? How many just gave up, like you almost did? Sarah thought about the nights on the street, the times she'd considered just walking into Lake Michigan and not coming back. How close she'd come. We need those nurses, Cisco said. If we can find them, get them to talk despite the NDAs. An NDA, as signed under duress, aren't always enforceable, interrupted a new voice. Everyone turned. A woman stood in the doorway, tall and elegant, despite the late hour, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Sarah used to make in a month. Especially if we can prove the underlying conduct was criminal. Who the hell are you? Rafe asked. Marcus stood up. Everyone, this is Catherine Voss. She's a federal prosecutor and an old friend. Catherine's smile was cool. Marcus called me 30 minutes ago and explained the situation. I've been looking into Apex Recovery Solutions for 6 months now, but I haven't had enough evidence to move forward. Until now. She looked at Sarah. You're the break I've been waiting for. Sarah felt the room spinning. I don't understand. Why would a federal prosecutor care about debt collectors? Because Apex isn't just collecting debt. They're running a racketeering operation. They systematically target licensed professionals, buy their debt, then use threats and harassment to extract payments far exceeding the original amounts. They've made over $200 million in the last 3 years doing this. Catherine sat down across from Sarah. I need you to tell me everything. Every phone call, every letter, every threat. And I need you to wear a wire. A wire! Sarah's voice went high. You want me to contact them? I want you to call them, tell them you're ready to negotiate. Get them to admit their tactics on tape. With your testimony and the recordings, I can bring RICO charges against the entire organization. Sarah looked at Marcus. This is insane. Yeah, Marcus agreed. It is, but it's also the only way to stop them from doing this to other people. I'm not brave enough for this. You ran toward a dying man tonight when you could barely stand, Maria said quietly. You're brave enough. That was different. That was medicine. This is also medicine, Catherine interrupted. You're not just helping yourself. You're helping every nurse, every doctor, every healthcare worker they've targeted. You're the cure for a systemic disease. The medical metaphor landed. Sarah had spent years learning to diagnose and treat diseases. Could she really turn away from this one? What would I have to do? She asked slowly. Catherine pulled out a folder. First, we get your story on record, every detail, no matter how small. Then tomorrow you call Apex's main collection line. You tell them you've come into some money inheritance settlement, doesn't matter, and you want to negotiate your debt. They'll jump at it. And you'll record the conversation. Every word. If they threaten you, if they violate any federal laws, we'll have proof. Combined with the financial documents Rachel is analyzing and the patterns Cisco found, we'll have enough to bring charges. Sarah's hands were shaking. She looked down at her frostbitten fingers. Thought about the 244 days on the street, the cold nights, the fear, the shame. Thought about Amanda Chen and Jessica and 73 other nurses who'd been crushed by the same machine. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Catherine smiled. Good. We start now. For the next 2 hours, Sarah told her story into a recording device while Catherine asked questions with surgical precision. Every phone call, Sarah could remember every letter, every threat. Marcus sat beside her the whole time, a solid presence, and when her voice broke, he was there with water, with encouragement, with quiet fury on her behalf. At 2 a.m., Catherine finally turned off the recorder. That's enough for tonight. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense. After Catherine left, the brothers started filtering out. Rafe squeezed Sarah's shoulder. You did good tonight. I haven't done anything yet. You're still here, still fighting, that's something. When it was just Marcus, Maria, and Sarah left, Maria showed Sarah to the guest room. It had a real bed with clean sheets and a down comforter. Sarah stood in the doorway, unable to move. What's wrong? Maria asked. It's been so long since I had a bed. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She hugged Sarah fiercely. You have one now, for as long as you need it. Sarah lay down carefully, afraid the bed might disappear. The sheets were soft, the pillow firm. She should have fallen asleep immediately, but her mind was racing. Tomorrow she would call Apex, would put herself back in contact with the people who'd destroyed her life. The thought made her stomach clench. Her phone, a cheap burner Marcus had given her, buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Marcus. You awake? She typed back, yeah. Can't sleep either. Too much happening, too fast. You can back out. No one will think less of you. Sarah stared at the message. She could back out, could take the warm bed and the hot meals and disappear again, leave the fighting to others. But then she thought about Amanda Chen, about Jessica, about 73 nurses she'd never met but whose lives had been destroyed the same way hers had. She typed, I'm not backing out. I'm scared, but I'm not backing out. The response came immediately. Being scared and doing it anyway, that's the definition of courage. I don't feel courageous. You ran toward a dying man tonight. Trust me, you're courageous. Sarah smiled despite herself. Thank you for everything. Thank me when this is over. Get some sleep. She tried, she really did, but sleep wouldn't come. At 3 a.m., she got up, crept downstairs. The house was dark and quiet. She made tea in Maria's kitchen, stood by the window watching snowfall. Can't sleep. Sarah jumped. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. She hadn't seen him. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. It's okay. I'm just not used to houses anymore. On the street, you sleep light, always listening. Marcus turned on a small lamp. That'll take time to shake off. Sarah sat down across from him. How's your father? Jake's there now. He'll call if anything changes, but the doctors say he's stable. Marcus rubbed his face. I keep thinking about what you said, that you'd been counting days. It's stupid, I know. It's not stupid, it's survival. But Sarah, you need to understand something. We're not just doing this to help you. We're doing it because what Apex did is wrong, and we don't tolerate wrong. Even if you'd never saved that man tonight, even if we just found those papers in your bag, we'd still be doing this. Why? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. Medical bills bankrupted my father, but he paid every penny. Took him 15 years, but he paid it all. He used to say, I won't let them make me into someone who runs from my debts. He was so proud of that. That's admirable. It's stupid. Marcus's voice was hard. He paid for treatments that didn't work for a system that failed him, and he was proud of it. Meanwhile, companies like Apex are making millions off people suffering, adding interest and fees that have nothing to do with the actual cost of care. It's not debt collection, it's extortion. Sarah wrapped her hands around her tea mug. Your father sounds like a good man. He is, and he would have done the same thing for you that I'm doing, because that's what good people do. They stand up when they see injustice. I'm not sure I deserve this. Deserve? Marcus's laugh was harsh. Sarah, you saved a stranger's life tonight with frostbitten hands. You've been living on the street for 8 months and you still carry your nursing license because you haven't given up on who you are. You deserve everything we're doing and more. Sarah felt tears coming again. She was so tired of crying. I just want my life back. Then let's get it back. Tomorrow we call Apex. We get them on tape, and then we burn their whole operation to the ground. The next morning came too fast. Sarah woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. She dressed in the borrowed clothes, went downstairs. Maria was making breakfast while talking on the phone. Yes, size 7, jeans, sweaters, a winter coat that actually works. Boots, too. She looked up, saw Sarah. Hold on. To Sarah, what size shoe are you? 8, but you don't have to. I'm getting you clothes that fit, non-negotiable. Back to the phone, size 8 boots, warm ones. She hung up. My sister's bringing stuff over in an hour. You can't fight a battle in borrowed sweatpants. Sarah sat down at this table, and this is too much. It's not enough. Maria slid a plate of eggs and bacon in front of her. Eat. You need your strength for later. Catherine arrived at 10 carrying a briefcase and wearing an expression that meant business. Ready? Sarah's stomach clenched. No, but let's do it anyway. They set up in Maria's dining room. Catherine produced a small recording device, tested it twice. Okay, here's how this works. You call Apex's main collection number. When they answer, ask for Derek. He's the one who called you most frequently, right? Yes. Good. Tell him you've come into some money from a settlement, not too much. We don't want them thinking you can pay everything. Say 20,000. Tell them you want to negotiate your debt. And then let them talk. The more they say, the better. If they threaten you, if they mention your license, if they add fees that weren't in the original letters, anything illegal, we've got them. Sarah's hands shook as she dialed the number. It rang twice. Apex Recovery Solutions. This is Derek speaking. The voice hit her like a punch. Smooth, professional, hiding cruelty underneath. Sarah had heard that voice in nightmares. This is Sarah Monroe, account number 773149992. A pause. She could hear typing. Ms. Monroe, we've been trying to reach you. I know, I'm sorry. I've been dealing with some things. Your account is severely delinquent. Current balance is $731,422.08. Sarah's stomach turned. The number had gone up again. I know, that's why I'm calling. I've come into some money. I want to negotiate. Derek's voice changed, became eager. We're always willing to work with clients who show good faith. How much are we talking about? 20,000 from a settlement. That's a start, but it's not nearly enough to cover your obligation. I know, but it's what I have. Can we work something out? Well, Ms. Monroe, our standard policy requires payment in full or a structured payment plan that includes our collection fees and accrued interest. Given your current balance, a payment plan would require approximately $12,000 per month for the next 7 years. Sarah's breath caught. $12,000 per month. She'd never made that much in her life. I can't afford that. Then perhaps you should consider liquidating assets. Do you own property? A car. You mentioned you're a registered nurse. Perhaps you could pick up extra shifts. My license was suspended. Yes, I see that in your file. Unfortunate. But that's not our concern, Ms. Monroe. You incurred this debt, and you have a legal and moral obligation to repay it. Catherine was writing rapidly on a notepad. Keep him talking. What if I can't pay? Sarah asked. Then we'll have no choice but to pursue more aggressive collection methods. Wage garnishment, asset seizure, legal action. We can also report your debt to credit bureaus, which will make it difficult for you to secure housing, employment, or loans. And of course, we'll continue reporting to the state licensing board. There it was, the threat. You'll report to the licensing board. We're required to report certain debts to regulatory agencies. Yes, it's standard procedure. But my license is already suspended. Suspended can become revoked, Ms. Monroe. I'd hate to see that happen. Such a waste of your education and training. Catherine was nodding, writing perfect. Sarah's voice hardened. So if I don't pay, you'll make sure I never work as a nurse again. I'm simply explaining the consequences of non-payment. These are facts, not threats. It sounds like a threat to me. Derek's tone shifted, became colder. Ms. Monroe, I'm trying to help you. But if you're going to be difficult, perhaps we should end this conversation and move forward with legal action. Wait, please, I want to work this out. Then let's talk realistically. 20,000 is insulting given what you owe. Where's this settlement money from? A car accident. The other driver's insurance. Is that the full amount? Sarah hesitated. Catherine shook her head firmly. Yes. I don't believe you. Settlement amounts for car accidents are typically much higher. What's the real number, Ms. Monroe? That's all I have. You're lying, and lying to a debt collector is a federal offense. I could report you for fraud. Catherine's eyes went wide. She wrote in large letters, threatening federal charges equals illegal. I'm not lying, Sarah said. 20,000 is what I have. Fine. We will accept the 20,000 as a down payment, but you'll need to commit to monthly payments of 8,000 for the next 10 years. I can't do that. I don't have a job. Then get one. You're young, educated. There's no reason you can't work. Without my nursing license. That's not my problem, Ms. Monroe. You should have thought about that before you let your debts get out of control. Sarah felt real anger now cutting through the fear. I didn't let my debts get out of control. I got sick. I nearly died. And you're profiting from that. We're a legitimate business providing a necessary service. If you have an issue with your debt, take it up with the hospital that charged you. We simply collect what's legally owed, with interest that triples the original amount. Interest and fees are clearly outlined in the documents you signed when you incurred the debt. I never signed anything agreeing to your fees. You signed admission paperwork at the hospital, which included agreement to pay all costs associated with your care, including collection costs if payment wasn't made. It's all legal, Ms. Monroe. Catherine was practically glowing. She'd filled a whole page with notes. So, if I give you 20,000, what happens to the rest? Sarah asked. It remains on your account, accruing interest at the standard rate of 18% annually compounded monthly plus our administrative fees. 18%. That's usury. It's the legal maximum for unsecured debt in Illinois, and given your history of non-payment, you're considered high risk. Sarah looked at Catherine, who mouthed, "Ask about other nurses." How many other nurses are you doing this to? Sarah asked. A long pause. I'm not sure what you mean. How many other healthcare workers have you targeted this way? Buying up their medical debt and student loans, then threatening their licenses. Ms. Monroe, I think this conversation has run its course. If you're serious about paying your debt, wire the 20,000 to our account, and we'll discuss next steps. If not, expect to hear from our legal department. Wait, the line went dead. Sarah set down the phone, her whole body shaking. Catherine reached over, turned off the recorder. That, Catherine said, her voice tight with satisfaction, was perfect. Perfect, Sarah's voice came out strangled. He just threatened to destroy what's left of my life. Exactly. Catherine was rewinding the recording, playing back specific sections. He violated the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act at least 4 times in that one call, threatening federal charges for alleged lying illegal, claiming they'll report to the licensing board as retaliation for non-payment illegal, demanding information about settlement amounts illegal, and the best part, he admitted their entire business model on tape. Maria appeared in the doorway with coffee. How did it go? We've got them. Catherine accepted the coffee gratefully. Sarah, you did exactly what we needed. Now comes the hard part. That wasn't the hard part. That was gathering evidence. Now we use it. Catherine pulled out her phone, started typing. I'm sending this recording to my team right now. By end of business today, we'll have enough to file for an emergency injunction against Apex's collection activities. Sarah felt dizzy. An injunction that fast. When you have clear evidence of ongoing illegal activity, yes, we'll argue that Apex poses an immediate threat to public welfare, specifically to healthcare workers who are being systematically prevented from practicing their profession through illegal debt collection tactics. Catherine looked up. Sarah, I need you to understand what's about to happen. This is going to get big. Media, public attention, and scrutiny. Are you ready for that? I don't know. Honest answer, I appreciate that. Catherine's expression softened. Look, I've been prosecuting white-collar crime for 12 years. Cases like this, where corporations prey on vulnerable people, they make me furious. But they're also complicated and they take time. Months, sometimes years. And the people at the center of them, the victims, they get dragged through hell again and again. You're trying to scare me off. I'm trying to prepare you. Because once this starts, there's no stopping it. Apex will fight back. They'll try to discredit you, dig up everything about your past, make you look irresponsible or incompetent. It's going to hurt. Sarah thought about the parking lot, about running toward a dying stranger when every muscle screamed at her to stay down, stay safe. I'm already hurt. At least this way the hurt means something. Catherine smiled. Okay then, let's go to war. Marcus had been listening from the kitchen doorway. What do you need from us? Find the other nurses, the ones from the 2019 lawsuit. If we can get even a few of them to break their NDAs and testify, we can show a pattern of predatory behavior that goes beyond Sarah's case. Catherine stood up. I have to get back to my office. Sarah, don't answer any calls from Apex. Don't communicate with them at all. Everything goes through me now. After Catherine left, Sarah sat at the dining table feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. Her phone buzzed. Marcus had added her to a group chat with all the brothers. Jake. Cisco found addresses for 12 of the nurses from the 2019 lawsuit, all in Chicago area. Tommy. Rachel says Apex's parent company, Meridian Capital, has 3 other subsidiaries doing the same thing in different states. It's a nationwide operation. Rafe. Danny Chen wants an exclusive interview with Sarah, says his editor is greenlighting a front-page story. Sarah looked at Marcus. This is moving too fast. Yesterday I was sleeping in an alley. Yeah, and tomorrow you're going to be on the front page of the Chicago Tribune. Marcus sat down next to her. You can still walk away. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. This is your life, your fight. We'll support whatever you decide. Sarah's phone buzzed again. An email notification. She opened it without thinking, then froze. From Derek.Morrison@apexrecovery.com. Subject payment arrangement, Sarah. I've reviewed our conversation this morning. I may have been too harsh. Let's work something out. Call me directly at the number below. We can negotiate better terms without involving legal. He's trying to cover his tracks, Sarah said, showing Marcus the email. Marcus read it, his jaw tightening. He knows he messed up. He's trying to get you to make a deal before you lawyer up. Too late for that. Way too late. Marcus forwarded the email to Catherine. She'll want this. It shows consciousness of guilt. Sarah's hands were shaking again. She pressed them flat against the table, tried to steady herself. I keep thinking about what he said, about the other nurses. How many people are living through what I went through? According to Rachel's preliminary analysis, over 3,000 healthcare workers in the last 5 years. Just from Apex. That doesn't count their sister companies. 3,000. Sarah tried to imagine that many people, that much suffering multiplied out across the country. Nurses who couldn't practice, doctors who'd lost their licenses, all of them crushed under debt that kept growing no matter what they did. We have to find them, she said. The nurses from the lawsuit. If they signed ND as they're still trapped, they need to know there's a way out. Marcus was already texting. Jake's working on it, but Sarah, these people might not want to be found. They took settlement money and signed agreements to stay quiet. Breaking those agreements could cost them everything. They've already lost everything, just like I did. Not everyone sees it that way. Some people just want to move on, forget it ever happened. Sarah understood that. She'd thought about it herself during the darkest nights. What if she could just forget? Just accept that she'd lost her nursing career and become someone else entirely. But then she'd see someone collapse or hear an ambulance and her hands would remember what they were trained to do. You couldn't forget who you were, not really. The doorbell rang. Maria answered it, returned with a woman carrying several shopping bags. My sister Rosa. Rosa took one look at Sarah and her eyes filled with tears. Jake told me, I'm so sorry this happened to you. The bags contained clothes, real clothes that looked new, jeans that fit, sweaters in soft colors, a winter coat that was actually warm boots with no holes. Sarah touched them carefully like they might disappear. I can't afford these. They're not for sale, Rosa said firmly. They're a gift from one woman to another. Sarah felt tears coming again. She was so tired of crying, but these people kept showing her kindness she didn't know how to process. Thank you. Go try them on. And Sarah, Rosa waited until Sarah looked at her. My daughter wants to be a nurse. She's in her 2nd year of nursing school. What Apex did to you, I want to make sure it never happens to her. Sarah went upstairs, changed into jeans and a sweater that actually fit, looked at herself in the mirror. She still looked too thin, still had shadows under her eyes, but she looked human again, like someone who might have a future. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Sarah Monroe, a woman's voice nervous. Yes, this is Amanda Chen. We were in nursing school together at Rush. I heard you were looking for people who'd been targeted by Apex Recovery. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. Amanda, God, yes. How did you find me? I have a friend who knows someone in the Hells Angels. Word travels fast in that community. Amanda's voice dropped. Is it true? Are you really going after them? Yes, the federal prosecutor is building a case. We just need people willing to testify. I signed an NDA. They said if I violated it, they'd sue me for the settlement amount plus damages. The prosecutor says NDAs signed under duress might not be enforceable, especially if the underlying conduct was illegal. Amanda was quiet for so long, Sarah thought she'd hung up. Then, they destroyed my life. I was working in pediatric oncology. I love my job, love those kids. Then Apex bought my student loan, started calling 20 times a day. They told my supervisor I was under investigation for fraud. It wasn't true, but it didn't matter. The hospital let me go to avoid liability. Then they went after my license. What happened? I fought it, spent everything I had on lawyers. In the end, I settled for $30,000 and agreed never to speak about what they did. But Sarah, that money's gone. I'm working as a medical transcriptionist, now making a third of what I made as a nurse. And I wake up every day angry that I let them win. Sarah's voice was fierce. They haven't won, not yet. Amanda, we can stop them, but I need you to go on record. Tell your story. If I break the NDA, then we fight that too, together. Another long pause. Okay, where do I need to be? Sarah looked at Marcus, who'd been listening. He nodded, typed something on his phone. Catherine Voss, federal prosecutor. She'll contact you within the hour. Amanda, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when these bastards are in prison. After hanging up, Sarah sat down hard on the bed. One nurse. They had one nurse willing to testify. Her phone rang again. Different unknown number. Sarah Monroe, this is Jessica Ramirez. I used to work at Northwestern Memorial. I heard you're building a case against Apex. Sarah's breath caught. Yes, how did you? Amanda Chen called me, said you need witnesses. I'm in. Your NDA. I don't care about the NDA. They took my career, my savings, my dignity. I'm ready to take something back. By dinner time, Sarah had talked to 7 nurses. 7 women who'd been through the same nightmare, who'd lost their licenses, their careers, their lives to Apex's predatory system. 7 women who were ready to fight. Catherine called it 6. I heard 7 potential witnesses. Sarah, this is incredible. They're brave, braver than me. You made the first call. That's the hardest one. Catherine's voice turned serious. I'm filing the emergency injunction tomorrow morning. Once that's public, Apex is going to know you're the source. They're going to come after you. Let them come. Sarah, I'm serious. I've been running and hiding for 8 months. I'm done. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Okay, but you need protection, physical protection. These people played dirty. I'm staying with the Hells Angels. I think I'm covered. Catherine laughed. Yeah, I'd say so. Okay, get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. But rest didn't come. Sarah lay in bed thinking about Amanda, Jessica, the other 5 nurses, thinking about the 3,000 more who didn't know yet that someone was fighting for them. At midnight, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs. The kitchen light was on. Jake was sitting at the table with a laptop Cisco beside him with papers spread everywhere. Can't sleep, Jake asked. Too wired. What are you doing? Digging into Meridian Capital's financials. Want to know something interesting? Cisco turned the laptop toward her. Apex Recovery isn't just buying healthcare debt. Correct. They're specifically targeting nurses and doctors who work in underserved communities. Look at the zip codes. Sarah scanned the list. Southside Chicago, rural Illinois, low-income areas. Right. They're not going after wealthy doctors in private practice. They're targeting people who chose to work in community health public hospitals free clinics, people who were trying to help. Sarah felt sick. That's deliberate. Absolutely deliberate. And these healthcare workers typically have high student debt because they didn't come from money. They work in lower paying positions because they care about access to healthcare. They're perfect targets: high debt, low income, strong ethical commitment to their profession. Cisco's voice was tight with anger. Apex weaponizes their compassion against them. How is this legal? Technically, it's not. The tactics they use violate multiple federal laws, but enforcement is weak, penalties are small, and most victims are too scared or broke to fight back. Jake closed the laptop. Until now. Sarah sat down. What happens if we lose? We won't lose. But if we do, then we regroup and try again. But Sarah, you need to understand something. We've already won. You got 7 nurses to come forward in one afternoon. That's 7 people who aren't hiding anymore, who aren't letting fear control them. That's victory. Sarah wanted to believe that. Catherine said Apex will come after me once the injunction is public. They will, but we're ready. Jake pulled out his phone, showed her a group chat with at least 30 names. Every Hell's Angel in Chicago knows your face now. You go anywhere, you've got brothers watching your back. Apex wants to play intimidation games. They're about to learn we invented that game. At 3 a.m., Sarah finally fell asleep on Maria's couch. She dreamed of the parking lot, of running toward the collapsed man, but in the dream when she reached him, his face was hers. She woke to her phone ringing. Catherine calling at 7 a.m. The injunction is filed. We're having a press conference at 10. Can you be ready? Sarah was still half asleep. Press conference. The media is already picking up the story. Danny Chen's article hits the Tribune website in 30 minutes. We need to control the narrative before Apex does. I need you there, Sarah. I need people to see the human cost of what they've done. Sarah looked down at herself. She was wearing borrowed clothes, sleeping in a stranger's house, her whole life in a plastic bag. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. You called Derek yesterday knowing he'd try to destroy you. You got 7 women to break their NDAs in one afternoon. You can stand in front of cameras and tell the truth. Marcus appeared in the doorway with coffee. He'd been sleeping on the recliner, keeping watch. What's going on? Sarah put the phone on speaker. Catherine wants me at a press conference in 3 hours. Marcus didn't hesitate. We'll be there. This isn't your fight, Sarah protested. The hell it's not. You saved a stranger's life and got thrown into a war. We don't abandon people mid-battle. He looked at her phone. Catherine, where and when? Federal Building, 10 a.m. front steps. We'll have her there at 9:45. After Catherine hung up, Sarah stared at Marcus. I'm terrified. Good. Terror means you understand the stakes. He handed her the coffee. Drink this, then get dressed. We're about to make some very powerful people very angry. Danny Chen's article went live at 7:30 a.m. Maria pulled it up on her laptop and they all gathered around to read. The headline, Federal Investigation Exposes Predatory Debt Collection Targeting Healthcare Workers. The subhead, Thousands of nurses, doctors forced from profession by illegal collection tactics. The article was devastating. Danny had woven Sarah's story together with data from Rachel's financial analysis, quotes from Catherine about the federal investigation, and accounts from 2 of the other nurses who'd agreed to speak on record. He'd found the sealed 2019 lawsuit and gotten a judge to unseal parts of it. He'd tracked down former Apex employees willing to admit the company specifically targeted healthcare workers with high student debt. And he'd connected it all to Senator Richard Hargrove's investment fund. This is going to explode, Maria said quietly. She was right. By 8 a.m., the story was trending on social media. By 8:30, major news networks were calling Catherine's office requesting interviews. By 9, Senator Hargrove's office released a statement denying any knowledge of Apex's business practices. Sarah read the senator's statement on her phone. I am deeply troubled by these allegations. As a passive investor in Meridian Capital, I had no involvement in day-to-day operations of subsidiary companies. I have divested my holdings and will cooperate fully with any investigation. He's covering his ass, Cisco said. Classic politician move. Deny knowledge, express concern, distance yourself. Will it work? Sarah asked. Depends on what we can prove. If we can show he knew about Apex's tactics and profited any way, he's done. If not, he walks away clean. Sarah felt fury rising. He can't just walk away. His company destroyed thousands of lives. Welcome to white-collar crime, Catherine said. She'd arrived at the house to prep Sarah for the press conference. The people at the top almost never face consequences, but we can make sure their companies do. At 9:15, they left for the federal building. Marcus drove with Jake riding shotgun and Tommy and Ray following on motorcycles. Sarah sat in the back trying to remember how to breathe. You're going to do great, Maria said. She'd insisted on coming for moral support. What if I freeze? What if I can't talk? Then Catherine talks. But you won't freeze. You're stronger than you think. The federal building was surrounded by news vans. Sarah counted at least 7, maybe more. Cameras everywhere. Reporters setting up positions on the steps. Jesus, she whispered. Marcus parked in a loading zone, put Hell's Angels placards in the windshield. Stay close, we go in as a group. They walked toward the building in formation, Marcus on Sarah's right, Jake on her left, the other brothers forming a protective circle. Reporters spotted them immediately. Ms. Monroe, is it true Apex threatened your nursing license? Sarah, how long were you homeless? Will you be testifying in federal court? Marcus kept them moving. No questions until the press conference. Step back, please. They pushed through to the building entrance where Catherine was waiting with her team. She took one look at Sarah's pale face and squeezed her hand. You've got this. Just tell the truth. At exactly 10 a.m., they walked out onto the steps. Sarah had never seen so many cameras in her life. The crowd had grown news media curious onlookers, and something Sarah hadn't expected other nurses. At least 20 women holding signs. Healthcare workers stand with Sarah Monroe. Nurses against predatory debt. We are not cash machines. Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes. These women didn't know her, but they understood. Catherine stepped up to the microphone. Good morning. I'm Catherine Voss, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. This morning, my office filed an emergency injunction against Apex Recovery Solutions and its parent company, Meridian Capital Group, alleging systematic violation of federal debt collection laws and racketeering activity, targeting licensed healthcare professionals. The reporters erupted with questions. Catherine held up a hand. I'll take questions in a moment. First, I want to introduce someone who exemplifies both the human cost of Apex's practices and the courage required to fight back. This is Sarah Monroe, a registered nurse whose license was suspended after Apex bought her medical debt and used illegal tactics to force payment. Sarah, would you like to say anything? Sarah stepped up to the microphone. Her hands were shaking. The cameras were blinding. She looked out at the crowd and saw the nurses with their signs, saw Marcus nodding encouragement, saw Amanda Chen standing at the edge of the crowd with tears streaming down her face. She thought about the man in the parking lot, about running toward him when every instinct said, stay down, stay safe. My name is Sarah Monroe, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. 2 nights ago, I was homeless and living in an alley. I'd been on the streets for 8 months because a debt collection company destroyed my nursing career over bills I couldn't pay. But that same night, I watched a man collapse in a hospital parking lot, and I did what I was trained to do. I saved his life. Her voice cracked. I'm a nurse. That's who I am. It doesn't matter if I have a license or a home or anything else. I'm a nurse, and nurses help people. So when I learned that Apex Recovery Solutions has done to thousands of other healthcare workers what they did to me, I knew I had to help them too. That's what we do. We help people. The crowd was silent. Apex wants us to be ashamed. They want us to hide to accept that we deserve this. But I'm done hiding. I'm done accepting that caring for sick people should result in a lifetime of debt and destruction. I'm here to say no more. Not to me, not to the 7 women who came forward yesterday, not to the thousands of healthcare workers still trapped in this system. We deserve better, and we're going to fight until we get it. The crowd erupted applause from the nurses, shouted questions from reporters. Catherine stepped back to the microphone to field questions, but Sarah barely heard them. She was looking at Amanda, at Jessica, who'd also come, at the other nurses holding signs. They were fighting back, together. The press conference became a firestorm within hours. Sarah's face was on every news network by noon. Her words, I'm a nurse, that's who I am, became a rallying cry on social media. Hashtags emerged, hashtag nurses against Apex, Hashtag healthcare not debt. Hashtag Sarah Monroe story. By 2 p.m., the petition, calling for federal investigation of all debt collection agencies targeting healthcare workers, had 50,000 signatures. But Apex wasn't sitting idle. Sarah's phone started ringing at 12:30, unknown numbers over and over. She stopped answering after the fifth call, but the voicemails kept coming. Ms. Monroe, this is Davis and Associates Legal Counsel for Apex Recovery Solutions. Your public statements contain multiple defamatory claims. We demand immediate retraction and are prepared to file suit for damages exceeding $10 million. Marcus listened to the voicemail, his expression darkening. They're trying to scare you. It's working. Sarah's hands were shaking again. $10 million, I don't have 10,000. That's the point. It's an intimidation tactic. He forwarded the voicemail to Catherine. Let her handle it. Catherine called back within minutes. Sarah, do not respond to any calls from Apex or their lawyers. They're phishing. They want you to say something they can use against you. Everything you said at the press conference is protected speech. They can threaten all they want, but they won't win a defamation suit when everything you said is true and documented. Are you sure? I'm sure, but Sarah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Are you prepared for that? Sarah thought about the parking lot again, about the moment she decided to run toward danger instead of away from it. I'm prepared, but she wasn't. Not really. At 3 p.m., that a man in an expensive suit showed up at Maria's house. He knocked politely, waited for someone to answer. Maria opened the door with Jake standing behind her. Can I help you? She asked. I'm looking for Sarah Monroe. I have documents to serve her. She's not here. Ma'am, I have reason to believe she's residing at this address. Obstruction of legal service is a criminal offense. Jake stepped forward. You have reason to believe based on what? The process server hesitated. I'm just doing my job, sir. Your job is to serve papers to someone who's not here. So unless you have a warrant, you need to leave now. The man set an envelope on the doorstep. Consider her served. He walked away quickly. Jake picked up the envelope, brought it inside. Sarah opened it with shaking hands. Notice of lawsuit, Apex Recovery Solutions versus Sarah Monroe. Defamation breach of ND. A intentional interference with business relationships. Seeking damages of $12 million. I never signed an ND. Sarah said, her voice hollow. Cisco took the papers, scanned them quickly. This is garbage. They're claiming you entered into an implied NDA by accepting their settlement offer, which you never did. This won't survive a motion to dismiss. But it costs money to defend right money I don't have. Money you won't need. Catherine's office will move to dismiss based on anti-SLAPP statutes. This is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. They're trying to silence you through litigation. Courts shut these down fast. Cisco's smile was cold. And when they do, Apex will owe you attorney's fees. Sarah wanted to believe him, but the lawsuit felt like a weight crushing her chest. What if they win? They won't win. Sarah, look at me. Marcus waited until she met his eyes. This is what they do. They throw legal threats around, hoping people will fold. But you've got a federal prosecutor on your side, you've got documentation of their illegal activities, and you've got us. They're not going to win. Sarah's phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. It's the hospital, Northwestern Memorial. Answer it, Catherine said. She'd come over as soon as she heard about the lawsuit. Put it on speaker. Sarah answered. Hello. Ms. Monroe, this is Dr. Richard Chen, Chief Medical Officer at Northwestern Memorial. I'm calling about the man you assisted in our parking lot 2 nights ago. Sarah's stomach clenched. Is he okay? He's more than okay. He's alive because of you. His name is David Park, and he's been asking to meet you. He wants to thank you personally. That's not necessary. I just did what anyone would do. Ms. Monroe, most people wouldn't have done what you did, especially not in your condition. Dr. Chen's voice softened. I also want you to know that we've been following your story. What happened to you, what Apex did, it's unconscionable. Northwestern Memorial was one of the hospitals that sold your debt to them. We didn't know what they would do with it, but that's not an excuse. We should have known. Sarah felt tears starting. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow to review our debt sale policies. And because Mr. Park is a major hospital donor and he's very interested in helping you get your nursing license reinstated. My license was suspended by the state board, not the hospital. I'm aware, but Mr. Park has significant influence with the board. He's also prepared to pay off your medical debt in full, not through Apex directly to the hospital with the documentation that you owe nothing further. Sarah couldn't breathe. Why would he do that? You saved his life. He's a man who believes in paying his debts. Will you meet with him? Sarah looked at Marcus, at Catherine, at all the faces watching her. Yes, I'll meet with him. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. my office. Ms. Monroe, we owe you an apology and more. I hope we can begin to make things right. After hanging up, Sarah sat in stunned silence. Did that just happen? She finally asked. That just happened. Maria confirmed, tears in her eyes. The hospital's going to pay off your debt, Tommy said, shaking his head. Of it. Just the hospital portion. I still owe the student loans. But even as Sarah said it, she felt something loosening in her chest. The medical debt had been the biggest piece, almost $50,000, that had ballooned to over $200,000 with Apex's interest and fees. If that was gone. Catherine was already on her phone. This is huge, Sarah. If Northwestern pays off the debt directly, it undermines Apex's claim to it. We can argue they never had legal right to collect on debt that's been satisfied by the original creditor. But what about the other nurses, Sarah asked. What about Amanda and Jessica and all the others? One hospital paying off one person's debt doesn't fix the system. No, but it starts a conversation. Catherine's smile was fierce. Every hospital in the country is going to be watching this. If Northwestern takes responsibility for predatory debt sales, others might follow. It creates pressure. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Amanda. I just got a call from Rush University Medical Center. They want to discuss my debt. Sarah, what did you do? Sarah showed the text to the group. I didn't do anything. You went on national television and told the truth, Marcus said. That's what you did. Now hospitals are scared. They're realizing they're complicit in what Apex did, and they're trying to get ahead of the liability. More texts started coming in. Jessica, St. Anthony's just called me. Another nurse Sarah hadn't heard from before. Mercy Hospital is offering to settle my debt for the original amount, no interest. Then another, they're calling all of us. Catherine was typing furiously on her laptop. This is perfect. If hospitals are settling debts directly, it pulls the rug out from under Apex's entire business model. They can't collect on debt that's been paid. But they'll still have the student loans, Cisco pointed out. That's the bigger piece for most of these nurses. One problem at a time, Catherine said. Right now we focus on destroying Apex's medical debt collection. Then we go after the student loan piece. At 6 p.m., Sarah's phone rang again. Her father. She hadn't spoken to him in over a year, not since she'd become homeless. She'd been too ashamed. She answered with trembling hands. Dad. Sarah. His voice broke. Baby girl, I just saw you on the news. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm safe. I'm with friends. You've been on the streets for 8 months and you didn't call. I couldn't. I was so ashamed and I didn't want you to see me like that. Ashamed, Sarah, you saved a man's life. You stood up to a corporation that's been destroying people. I've never been more proud of you. He was crying now. Come home. Please come home. Dad, I can't. Not yet. I have to see this through. Then I'm coming there. Where are you? Sarah looked at Maria, who nodded. She gave him the address. Her father arrived 2 hours later, a tall man with gray hair and the same green eyes as Sarah. He took one look at his daughter and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. I'm sorry, Sarah sobbed into his shoulder. I'm so sorry I didn't call. Shh, you're here now. That's all that matters. He pulled back, looked at her face. You're too thin. When's the last time you ate properly? A few days ago. These people have been taking care of me. Sarah's father turned to Marcus and the others. Thank you for protecting my daughter when I didn't know she needed protecting. Marcus shook his hand. She's been protecting herself. We're just backup. That night, Sarah lay in bed in the guest room with her father sleeping in a chair beside her own. He'd refused to leave, said he'd already lost too much time with his daughter. She watched him sleep and felt something settling in her chest. Not peace exactly, but the beginning of it. For the first time in 8 months, she wasn't alone. The next morning, Sarah dressed carefully in clothes Rosa had brought. professional, put together like the nurse she used to be. Her father drove her to Northwestern Memorial with Marcus following on his motorcycle. Dr. Chen's office was on the administrative floor at all glass and steel. David Park was already there, a Korean man in his 60s with kind eyes and an oxygen cannula still in his nose. He stood when Sarah entered, moved toward her, then stopped. "Ms. Monroe, I owe you my life." "You don't owe me anything. I did what I was trained to do." "You did what you were trained to do while suffering from hypothermia and starvation after living on the streets for 8 months because of a broken system." David's voice was firm. "That's not just training. That's character." Dr. Chen gestured for everyone to sit. "Mr. Park and I have been discussing how Northwestern can make amends for its role in Miss Monroe's situation. We've agreed to the following. Northwestern will pay off the entirety of Sarah's medical debt, the original $47,832. We're also issuing a formal letter stating that all debt related to her appendectomy and subsequent care has been satisfied in full with no further amounts owed." Sarah felt dizzy. 47,000, but Apex said I owed over 200,000 from the medical bills alone. That was their interest and fees, none of which were legitimate. The actual hospital charges were under 50,000. We're paying that directly, which invalidates any claim Apex has to the debt. What about the collection fees they have already extracted from me? Sarah had lost thousands to wage garnishments before she became homeless. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. That's a matter for your lawsuit against them. But Northwestern will provide documentation supporting your claim that those fees were fraudulent. David Park leaned forward. "Ms. Monroe, I'm also personally covering your student loan debt. All of it." Sarah's vision blurred. "That's over $200,000. I'm aware. I'm also aware that you saved my life when you had every reason to simply walk past me. Money is meaningless if I'm not alive to spend it." He pulled out a folder. "I've already contacted your loan servicers. The debt will be paid in full by end of business today." "I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's not nearly enough, but it's a start." David's voice gentled. "Sarah, I have 3 grandchildren. The youngest wants to be a nurse just like you. I want her to live in a world where choosing to help people doesn't result in financial ruin. Helping you is helping her and everyone like her." Sarah's father put his hand on her shoulder. She was crying too hard to speak. Dr. Chen handed her a tissue. "There's one more thing. I've contacted the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation on your behalf. With your debt satisfied and documentation of Apex's illegal collection activities, we're petitioning for immediate reinstatement of your nursing license." "How long will that take?" "Normally months, but these aren't normal circumstances. With the federal investigation and media attention, I believe we can expedite it, possibly within a week." Sarah looked at Marcus, who'd been silent through the meeting. He was smiling. "You're getting your life back," he said quietly. But even as joy flooded through her, Sarah thought about Amanda, Jessica, the thousands of other nurses still trapped. What about everyone else? "That's the second reason for this meeting," Dr. Chen said. "Northwestern is prepared to offer the same debt forgiveness to any healthcare worker whose medical debt we sold to Apex. We're also joining a coalition of hospitals nationwide to review and reform debt sale practices. Your story is changing the industry, Ms. Monroe." Catherine had been right. One person telling the truth could start an avalanche. The meeting ended with handshakes and promises. David Park hugged Sarah gently, careful of her still healing body. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me more time with my grandchildren. Thank you for giving me my life back." Outside the hospital, Sarah's phone exploded with messages. The news had broken. Northwestern Memorial paying off Sarah Monroe's debt, major hospital donor, covering her student loans, petition for license reinstatement filed. The story was everywhere. And Apex was in freefall. Their stock price dropped 20% in an hour. 3 board members resigned. Senator Hargrove's office issued another statement, this one announcing a formal ethics inquiry into his investment practices. And most critically, Catherine called with news. "The judge granted our emergency injunction. Apex is barred from all collection activities against healthcare workers pending the outcome of our investigation." "Sarah, we won. We won the injunction. That's not the same as winning the case." "No, but it's a massive victory. Apex can't touch you or anyone else right now. And with the publicity, with hospitals pulling back debt, with their business model exposed, they're done. Even if they survive the legal battle, they'll never recover from this." Sarah leaned against her father's car, let the relief wash over her. What happens now? Now we build a criminal case. We go after everyone involved, from the debt collectors who made threats to the executives who designed the system. We make sure this never happens again. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. But Sarah, you don't have to be involved in every step. You've done your part. You can step back, Wiz. Focus on getting your license back, rebuilding your life. What about the other nurses? They'll have the same choice. Some will want to testify, help build the case. Others will want to move on. Both are valid. Sarah thought about that. She could step back, now let the prosecutors and lawyers handle it. She told her story, sparked the investigation. She could walk away with her debts paid and her license being reinstated. But when she closed her eyes, she saw the man in the parking lot, saw herself running toward him, not away. That's who she was, someone who ran toward people who needed help. I want to testify, she said. When this goes to trial, I want to tell my story in court. I want those executives to hear exactly what their system did to me. Catherine was quiet for a moment. It'll be brutal. Defense attorneys will try to destroy your credibility, make you look irresponsible or dishonest. They'll dig into every aspect of your life. Let them dig. They won't find anything worse than what I've already lived through. Okay, then we'll prepare you to testify. But Sarah, take some time first. Heal. Get your strength back. The trial is months away. After hanging up, Sarah turned to her father and Marcus. I need to do something. What? Her father asked. I need to go back to the alley, the one where I was living. Marcus frowned. Why, Pa? Because I left things there. Not much, but there's a blanket that a woman named Rita gave me. She's been homeless for 5 years. I want to give it back to her, tell her what happened, and I want to tell the others that they don't have to be invisible anymore. Her father looked uncertain, but Marcus nodded. I'll drive you. They went that evening back to the alley behind the Chinese restaurant on West Division. It looked different in daylight, smaller, dirtier, sadder than Sarah remembered. Her sleeping spot was empty, her few possessions scattered. Rita was there, an older black woman with gray dreadlocks, sitting on a milk crate smoking a cigarette. Sarah, Rita stood up staring. Girl, I thought you were dead. You just disappeared. I was at the hospital. My friend's father had a heart attack, and then everything just... Sarah pulled Rita into a hug. I'm sorry I didn't come back sooner. You look different, cleaned up. You get into a shelter. Better than that, Rita, I got my life back. My debts are paid. I'm getting my nursing license back and I have a place to stay. Rita's eyes filled with tears. How? Sarah told her everything, the parking lot, Marcus and the Hells Angels, the federal investigation, the press conference, David Park's generosity. Rita listened with her hand over her mouth. That's a damn miracle, she finally said. It's not a miracle. It's people choosing to help instead of looking away. Sarah pulled out her phone. Rita, I want to help you. What's keeping you on the streets? Same thing that keeps most of us here. I got mental health issues, can't hold a job. Lost my apartment, lost my kids to CPS, lost everything. What if I told you I know people who might be able to help the Hells Angels run programs for homeless veterans and families? Let me make some calls. Rita looked skeptical. Why would bikers help someone like me? Because that's what they do. They help people the system forgot about. Marcus had been hanging back, giving them space. Now he stepped forward. Ma'am, we have a facility on the south side, beds, meals, counseling, job training. If you're interested, I can get you in tonight. Rita stared at him. For real? For real, we don't turn people away. Rita looked at Sarah. Is this real? This ain't some kind of scam. It's real. Rita, you gave me your blanket when I had nothing. Let me give you something back. 2 hours later, Rita was checked into the Hells Angels homeless outreach facility with a bed, clean clothes, and an appointment with a counselor the next morning. 3 other people from the alley came with her, including a young man named Deshaun, who'd been living on the streets since aging out of foster care. Sarah watched them go inside, felt her father's arm around her shoulders. You're a nurse, he said quietly. You can't help yourself. You have to heal everyone. I can't heal everyone, but I can try to heal the people in front of me. That night, Sarah's story was the lead on every major news network. The footage from the press conference, her words about being a nurse no matter what, had struck a chord. Social media was flooded with stories from other healthcare workers who'd been targeted by predatory debt collectors. Nurses, doctors, physician assistants were sharing their experiences. A movement was building. At 10 p.m., Catherine called. Sarah, turn on CNN. Sarah grabbed the remote. The screen showed Anderson Cooper interviewing Senator Hargrove. Senator, you've said you had no knowledge of Apex Recovery Solutions practices, but documents obtained by this network show you attended at least 3 board meetings for Meridian Capital, where Apex's collection rates were specifically discussed. How do you explain that? Hargrove looked cornered. I attended those meetings, yes, but the specific tactics employed by Apex were never disclosed. But the profit margins were. Apex was generating returns of 300% on purchased debt. Didn't that raise questions about how they were achieving those numbers? I trusted the management team to operate within legal bounds. Even when those bounds were clearly being exceeded, Cooper leaned forward. Senator, you've built your political career on personal responsibility and fiscal accountability. Don't you think healthcare workers struggling with debt deserve that same accountability from the companies collecting it? Hargrove had no good answer. He stammered something about supporting reform and cooperating with investigations, but the damage was done. He's finished, Catherine said over the phone. His political career is over. Even if he avoids criminal charges, he'll never win another election. Good, Sarah said. She felt no sympathy for a man who'd profited from suffering while preaching responsibility to others. Marcus's phone rang. He answered, listened to his expression changing. We'll be right there. What's wrong? Sarah asked. That was Jake. Someone just firebombed the Hells Angels clubhouse. Sarah's blood went cold. Was anyone hurt? No, the building was empty. We moved our main operations to a different location last week as a precaution. But Sarah, this was a message. Someone's trying to intimidate us into backing off. Apex, most likely, or someone connected to them. Marcus's jaw was set, which means they're desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. Catherine had heard. I'm sending federal marshals to the hospital and to Maria's house. Sarah, you need protection. I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart. These people have everything to lose. They'll do anything to silence you. Sarah thought about David Park, about the man she'd saved in the parking lot, about running toward danger instead of away from it. But this was different. This wasn't medical crisis. This was violence, deliberate and targeted. Okay, she said. What do we do? We keep you safe while we build the case. The firebombing is actually good for us. It shows consciousness of guilt, demonstrates they're willing to commit crimes to protect their operation. It strengthens our RICO case. Someone tried to burn down a building and you're calling it good. I'm calling it evidence. Sarah, I know this is scary, but we're winning. They wouldn't be acting out like this if we weren't winning. That night, Sarah slept in a safe house with a federal marshal outside her door and her father in the next room. She should have felt secure, but instead she felt trapped. This wasn't the life she wanted, looking over her shoulder, worrying about who might be following her, afraid of every unknown number on her phone. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Amanda's face, Jessica's, Rita's, Deshawn's, all the people she could help if she just kept going. She texted Marcus, I'm not backing down. His response, didn't think you would. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we keep fighting. Tomorrow came with news that 3 more collection agencies had been subpoenaed as part of Catherine's investigation. Their practices mirrored Apex's, targeting licensed professionals, adding illegal fees, threatening careers. The problem was bigger than one company, but so was the solution. By noon, the petition calling for federal reform of debt collection practices had 500,000 signatures. Congressional representatives were calling for hearings. State licensing boards were suspending their policies, allowing debt-based license revocations. The system was starting to crack. And Sarah Monroe, the homeless nurse who'd saved a stranger's life, was at the center of it all. Sarah's nursing license arrived by courier 7 days later. The envelope was thin and official, marked with the state seal. Her hands shook as she opened it, her father standing beside her, Marcus and Maria watching from the doorway. Inside was a single card. Registered Nurse, Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. Sarah Monroe, license reinstated, active status. She stared at it, unable to process that it was real. You did it, her father said, his voice breaking. Baby girl, you got your life back. Sarah touched the laminated card, felt the raised letters under her fingers. I can work again. You can do more than work. You can be who you were always meant to be. But even as relief flooded through her, Sarah's phone buzzed. Catherine. Turn on the news. Now. Sarah grabbed the remote, switched to CNN. The screen showed Derek Morrison being led out of Apex Recovery Solutions headquarters in handcuffs. Behind him, more agents were escorting other employees out. The chyron read, Federal raids on Apex Recovery Solutions, 47 arrests made. Oh my God, Maria whispered. Catherine's voice came through the phone. We moved this morning. Simultaneous raids in 5 cities. We've got Derek Morrison, 3 other senior collectors, the entire executive team, and the CEO. They're all being charged under RICO racketeering, wire fraud extortion, witness intimidation. Witness intimidation, the firebombing, that and more. We found emails, Sarah. Internal communications showing they knew exactly what they were doing. They had quotas for how many healthcare workers to target each month. Bonuses for collectors who got people to pay through threats. And they knew it was illegal. There are emails discussing how to avoid detection. Sarah felt sick. They destroyed thousands of lives and they knew they were breaking the law. Not just knew, celebrated it. One email from the CEO literally says, these healthcare workers are gold mines. They'll pay anything to protect their licenses. It's damning evidence. Marcus was watching the television, his expression grim. What about the firebombing? One of the arrested employees rolled immediately, gave up the whole plan. Apex hired private contractors to intimidate witnesses. The firebombing was supposed to scare the Hells Angels into backing off. Obviously didn't work. Obviously, Marcus said. Sarah, this is it. This is what we've been working toward. Apex is finished. The company will be dissolved, assets, seized, victims compensated from the seized funds. How much compensation? That depends on what we recover, but we're estimating enough to cover original debts for everyone Apex targeted. Not the inflated amounts they claimed, but the actual debt. For many people, that's life-changing. Sarah thought about Amanda Jessica, the 73 nurses from the sealed lawsuit, the 3,000 other healthcare workers Catherine had identified. When will they get the money? Months, probably. These things take time. But Sarah, they're going to get it. You didn't just save yourself. You saved all of them. After Catherine hung up, Sarah watched the news coverage in silence. Derek Morrison's face filled the screen as reporters shouted questions. He looked smaller than he'd sounded on the phone, less threatening. Just a man who'd chosen cruelty as a career. How do you feel? Her father asked. Sarah didn't know how to answer. Relief, yes. Vindication. But also exhaustion, bone deep and total. She'd been running on adrenaline for over a week, fighting a battle she'd never expected to win. I feel tired, she finally said. But good tired, like after a long shift when you've saved someone you didn't think would make it. Marcus's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression softening. Yeah, she's right here. He held out the phone. It's my dad. He wants to talk to you. Sarah took the phone hesitantly. Mr. Williams, Robert's voice was weak but steady. Sarah Monroe, the woman who saved a stranger and then saved herself. I wanted to hear your voice. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, but I'm alive. The doctors say I'll make a full recovery. He paused. Sarah, my son, told me what you've been through, what you've done. I spent my whole life believing the system was fair if you just worked hard enough. You proved me wrong. I don't understand. I paid my wife's medical bills for 15 years, worked myself into the ground doing it, was proud I never ran from my debts. But you know what? Those debts were inflated, probably illegal, designed to keep me paying forever. I was too stubborn to see it. You weren't. You looked at an unjust system and said no. That takes courage I never had. Sarah felt tears stinging. You raise sons who fight for people. That takes courage too. Maybe, but they learned it from you, I think. From watching you run toward that man in the parking lot when you could barely stand. Sarah, don't let anyone tell you what you did was small. You changed the world. I just told the truth. That's how the world gets changed. One person telling the truth when everyone else is too scared. Robert's voice grew softer. Thank you for saving my life and for showing my boys what real heroism looks like. After they hung up, Sarah handed the phone back to Marcus. Your dad's a good man. He is, and he's right about you. Marcus met her eyes. You did change the world. Our world, at least. That afternoon, Sarah got a call from Northwestern Memorial. Dr. Chen again. Ms. Monroe, we'd like to offer you a position, nursing supervisor in our emergency department. It's yours if you want it. Sarah's breath caught. I've been out of practice for 8 months. Then you'll need some refresher training. We can provide that. Sarah, you performed flawless CPR on a stranger while suffering from hypothermia. Your skills are intact. And more than that, we need nurses who understand what patients are going through, who remember what it's like to have nothing and fight your way back. When would I start? Whenever you're ready. A week, a month tomorrow will work with your schedule. Sarah thought about the alley, about Rita and Deshawn, about the night she'd spent shivering and scared, wondering if she'd ever be a nurse again. 2 weeks, she said. I need 2 weeks to get myself together. 2 weeks it is. Welcome back, Nurse Monroe. Sarah spent those 2 weeks rebuilding. She found an apartment, small but clean, in a neighborhood she could afford. Her father helped her move in, buying furniture from thrift stores and cooking meals in her tiny kitchen. Marcus and the brothers stopped by to install deadbolts and security cameras, making sure she was safe. Amanda and Jessica came over for dinner one night, bringing wine and stories. Amanda had gotten her license back too, was starting a new job at a pediatric clinic. Jessica was still fighting her case, but with Apex's collapse, the state board was reviewing all debt-based suspensions. We're having a meeting, Amanda said. All of us, everyone Apex targeted who's willing to talk. We want to form a support group, help each other navigate getting our licenses back, finding work, dealing with the trauma. And we want you there, Jessica added. You're the reason any of us had the courage to come forward. Sarah agreed immediately. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday at a community center. And when Sarah arrived, she found 47 nurses waiting. 47 women who'd been through the same hell, who'd lost their careers and dignity to a predatory system. They shared stories for hours. Some cried, others raged. Many just sat quietly, finally feeling heard. At the end, a young nurse named Talia stood up. I want to propose something. We've all been victims, but we don't have to stay victims. What if we formed an advocacy organization, something to fight for healthcare workers facing predatory debt collection? We could provide legal resources, lobby for legislative change, support each other. The room erupted with agreement. They spent the next 2 hours planning, organizing, assigning roles. By the end of the meeting, the Healthcare Workers Defense Alliance was born. Sarah was elected president, though she tried to decline. You started this, Amanda said firmly. You're the one who wasn't afraid to fight back. We need you to lead. Sarah looked at the faces around her, survivors, fighters, healers. Okay, but we do this together. No one person is more important than the mission. Agreed, Talia said. So what's the mission? Sarah thought about that. About everything she'd learned, everything she'd survived. The mission is to make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else. We change laws. We educate healthcare workers about their rights. We fight back against any company that tries to exploit caregivers. And we support each other because we're stronger together than we ever could be alone. The room erupted in applause. 2 days before Sarah's first shift at Northwestern Memorial, Catherine called with more news. The CEO of Apex just took a plea deal. He's testifying against Meridian Capital and everyone else involved in exchange for a reduced sentence. How reduced? 15 years instead of 30? Still significant time? Catherine paused. Sarah, his testimony is going to bring down the entire network. Not just Apex, but 3 other collection agencies using the same tactics and multiple executives at Meridian Capital. This is bigger than we thought. What about Senator Hargrove? He's fighting it, but the ethics investigation is revealing more connections. He's probably looking at federal charges too. Wire fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy. Even if he avoids prison, his career is over. Sarah felt a grim satisfaction. Good. People need to know that profiting from suffering has consequences. They're learning. Sarah, I'm getting calls from legislators in 5 states asking for advice on debt collection reform. Your story is inspiring change nationwide. It's not just my story, it's all of ours. I know, but you're the face of it. The nurse who saved a stranger and then saved herself. People respond to that. Sarah's first day back at Northwestern Memorial was terrifying. She put on scrubs that fit properly for the first time in almost a year, pinned her license to her shirt, and walked through the emergency department doors feeling like an imposter. But then a patient came in, elderly woman, chest pain, clearly scared, and Sarah's training kicked in. She took vitals, got an IV, reassured the woman while paging the cardiologist. Her hands remembered what to do. Her mind clicked into the calm focus of emergency nursing. At the end of her shift, Dr. Chen found her in the break room. "How was it?" "Hard, good, right." Sarah looked down at her hands still steady. "I forgot how much I love this." "You're a natural. The staff is already impressed." He sat down across from her. "Sarah, I meant what I said at the press conference. Northwestern failed you. We sold your debt without considering what might happen to it. That's on us. But I want you to know we're changing our policies. No more debt sales to collection agencies. We're setting up payment plans directly working with patients instead of against them." "What about other hospitals?" "We're not alone. 12 major hospital systems have announced similar policy changes in the last 2 weeks. Your story is forcing the industry to look at itself and change. That's a legacy, Sarah." Sarah thought about that word. Legacy. Once her legacy would have been 8 months on the streets, a cautionary tale about medical debt. Now it was something else, a story of fighting back, of refusing to accept injustice, of changing a system that had seemed unchangeable. 3 months later, Sarah stood on the steps of the Capitol building in Springfield, testifying before the Illinois state legislature. The Healthcare Workers Protection Act was being debated, a law that would prohibit debt-based license suspensions, regulate collection agency practices, and establish oversight for medical debt sales. Sarah wore her nursing scrubs to testify, her license visible. Amanda stood beside her along with Jessica Talia and 15 other nurses from the Healthcare Workers Defense Alliance. "My name is Sarah Monroe," she told the assembled legislators. 9 months ago, I was homeless because a debt collection company destroyed my nursing career. Today, I'm here to make sure that never happens to anyone else." She told her story, all of it. The appendectomy, the spiraling debt, the illegal collection tactics, the license suspension, the nights on the street. She told them about Derek Morrison's threats, about Apex's systematic targeting of healthcare workers, about the 3,000 lives destroyed by corporate greed. "But I also want to tell you about hope," she said, "about the Hells Angels who stood up for me when the system wouldn't, about the federal prosecutor who fought for justice, about the man I saved in a parking lot who paid my debts when he didn't have to, about the 47 nurses who formed an organization to help others, about hospitals changing their policies because they finally realized the harm they'd caused." She looked directly at the legislators. "You have the power to protect healthcare workers from predatory debt collection. You have the power to say that choosing to heal people shouldn't result in financial ruin. I'm asking you to use that power. Pass this law. Give nurses and doctors the protection they deserve." The gallery erupted in applause. Several legislators were visibly moved. The Healthcare Workers Protection Act passed 2 weeks later with strong bipartisan support. Illinois became the first state to explicitly prohibit debt-based professional license suspensions and regulate medical debt collection practices. Within 6 months, 8 other states introduced similar legislation. Sarah's organization grew rapidly. The Healthcare Workers Defense Alliance opened chapters in 12 states, providing legal assistance to over 500 healthcare workers facing debt collection. They lobbied for federal reform, worked with hospitals to create fair payment plans, and supported nurses and doctors fighting to keep their licenses. Marcus and his brothers continued their support, providing security when needed and spreading the word through their national network. The Hells Angels became unlikely champions of healthcare worker rights, using their influence to pressure politicians and corporations. David Park, the man Barish had sagged in the parking lot, became the alliance's largest donor. He funded legal clinics, paid for license reinstatement fees, and used his business connections to push for industry reform. His granddaughter enrolled in nursing school with a full scholarship from a fund he established in Sarah's name. 6 months after the press conference, Catherine's prosecution of Apex Recovery Solutions and Meridian Capital went to trial. Sarah testified for 3 days, telling her story to a jury that listened with visible outrage. Derek Morrison took the stand and admitted to targeting healthcare workers specifically because they were vulnerable. The CEO described the entire business model in damning detail. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The executives faced decades in prison. Meridian Capital was ordered to pay $800 million in restitution to victims. Apex Recovery Solutions was dissolved, its assets seized and distributed to the people they'd exploited. Sarah received a check for $63,000, full reimbursement of the wages they'd garnished plus compensation for damages. She donated it all to the Healthcare Workers Defense Alliance. A year after that night in the parking lot, Sarah stood in Northwestern Memorial's emergency department, supervising a team of nurses during a busy Friday shift. She was good at her job, respected by her colleagues, known for her compassion with patients and her fierce advocacy for her staff. Marcus stopped by during his lunch break, still checking on her, even though she'd long since moved out of Maria's guest room and into her own life. They'd become friends, deep-lasting friendship forged in crisis and maintained through mutual respect. "How's the old man?" Sarah asked. "Driving us crazy. Won't stop exercising, won't stop eating healthy, won't stop telling everyone about the nurse who saved his life and then changed the healthcare system." Marcus smiled. "He's proud of you. We all are." "I didn't do it alone." "No, but you did it first. That's what matters." Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. "Just got licensed in Michigan, starting work next month. Thank you for showing us how to fight back." Another text from Jessica. "My hospital just announced new debt policies. We're changing the world, Sarah." And another from Talia. "New chapter opening in Ohio. We're up to 17 states now. This is happening." Sarah looked around the emergency department at nurses caring for patients, at doctors saving lives, at a system that was slowly, painfully learning to protect its caregivers instead of exploiting them. She thought about the alley, about the parking lot, about the moment she'd chosen to run towards someone who needed help instead of away. That choice had changed everything. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, old habits dying hard. But something made her pick up. "Is this Sarah Monroe?" A young woman's voice, scared and uncertain. "Yes." "Who's this?" "My name is Christina Patel. I'm a nurse in Wisconsin, and I just got a call from a debt collector threatening my license. I saw your story on the news. I don't know who else to call." Sarah felt something settle in her chest, purpose clear and undeniable. "Christina, you did the right thing calling me. You're not alone in this. Tell me everything." And as Christina began to talk, Sarah grabbed a notepad and started taking notes, already planning how the Healthcare Workers Defense Alliance would help, already reaching out to Catherine and Marcus and her network of nurses who'd learned to fight back. Because that's who Sarah Monroe was, a nurse who ran toward people who needed help, who'd turned her own suffering into a movement, who'd proven that one person telling the truth could change an entire system. She'd saved a stranger's life in a parking lot, and in doing so had saved herself. But more than that, she'd saved thousands of others who came after her healthcare workers, who would never face what she faced, who would never lose everything because they'd chosen to heal people who would never have to sleep in alleys because a broken system chewed them up and spit them out. The fight wasn't over. It would never be completely over. There would always be new victims, new predatory companies, new battles to fight. But Sarah wasn't afraid anymore. She had her license, her purpose, and an army of nurses who'd learned that they were stronger together than any corporation, any senator, any system designed to exploit them. Marcus was still standing there, watching her take Christina's information with that same fierce focus she'd had when she ran toward his father in the parking lot. "Another one?" he asked when she hung up. "Another one," Sarah confirmed. "Wisconsin this time. Debt collector threatening her license over student loans." "You going to help her?" Sarah looked at her nursing license still pinned to her scrubs. Looked at the emergency department where she saved lives every day. Looked at the phone in her hand, a lifeline to someone who was where Sarah had been a year ago. "Yeah," she said, "I'm going to help her. That's what we do. We help people." And she meant it, every word. Because Sarah Monroe wasn't just a nurse anymore. She was a fighter, an advocate, a living reminder that no system was too big to change, no injustice too entrenched to challenge, no person too broken to heal. She'd run toward danger in a frozen parking lot and sparked a revolution. And she wasn't done running yet.